Meeting with Xi, Biden told Asian leaders in Cambodia that lines of communication with China will remain open to avoid conflict, but the talks were likely to be tough. Biden said, according to reports, that he had always had straightforward discussions with Xi Jinping and that has stopped either of them from miscalculations of their intentions. On Sunday night, Biden arrived in Bali as his Democratic Party retained their control of the Senate after doing better than anticipated in the midterm elections. Xi Jinping, who secured an unprecedented third term at last month's Communist Party Congress and is China's most powerful leader since Mao Zedong, is due to land on the Indonesian island on Monday. According to more reports, Chinese president will also be holding bilateral meetings with Argentinian President Alberto Fernandez, French President Emmanuel Macron, and Senegalese President Macky Sall. Monday's meeting is unlikely to produce a joint statement, the White House had said, but there is hope it could lead to a more stable relationship between the world's two largest economies. China has indicated its emphasis for the talks will be U.S. action on trade and Taiwan. Janet Yellen, United States Treasury Secretary, has declared fresh U.S. sanctions aiming networks accused of supplying military technology for Russia's war in Ukraine. Speaking on the sidelines of the G20 summit in Bali on Monday, Yellen said the procedures will target 14 individuals and 28 entities. Yellen refused to give details of the identity or location of the supposed network or the technologies involved, but said a more detailed announcement will be made later on today. The U.S. has already rolled out a raft of sanctions against Russia in reaction to its war in Ukraine, including actions concentrating on Russian military suppliers and U.S.-based manufacturers of components used by Moscow in its military hardware. Yellen said that Washington will continue to assist Ukraine with financial and economic aid. The Biden administration has requested congressional approval for an additional $4.5 billion in non-military assistance for Ukraine, in addition to providing over $19 billion in security assistance. Yellen also said that ending the war was top priority for the global economy. Fuel and food prices, which have added due to the conflict, are among the significant agenda items at the G20 Leaders Summit, which commences on Tuesday. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky last week said he was open to genuine peace talks with Russia, but only if such negotiations lead to the restoration of Ukraine's borders, compensation for Russian attacks, and the punishment of individuals responsible for war crimes. Yellen said sanctions against Russia could be eased in the event of a peaceful deal, but some measures should probably stay in place even after the conflict ends, given what's happened, reports said. More stories says Turkish police arrest 22 suspects, including bomber. According to an official, Turkish police have arrested 22 people over the bombing in central Istanbul that left no less than 8 people dead and 81 others wounded. Interior Minister Süleyman Soylu said, according to reports on Monday, that the suspect included a person who left the bomb that caused the explosion on a busy thoroughfare in Turkey's largest city. Soylu blamed the outlaw Kurdistan Workers' Party (PKK) for Sunday's blast on Istiklal Avenue, saying, "Our assessment is that the order for the deadly terror attack came from Ain al-Arab in northern Syria, where he said the group has its Syrian headquarters." No group has claimed responsibility for the blast yet. Tayyip Erdogan, Turkish president, yesterday described the explosion as treacherous and said it smells like terrorism. Speaking before his departure to the G20 summit in Indonesia, Erdogan said prior information suggested that a woman had played a part in the attack. Justice Minister Bekir Bozdağ said, according to more report later on Sunday, that the woman was seen sitting on one of the benches on Istiklal Avenue for more than 40 minutes. The explosion occurred just minutes after she got up, he said. Soylu's announcement on Monday did not add any details about the woman. Condemnations of Sunday's attack and condolences for the victims rolled in from numerous countries, including Azerbaijan, Egypt, France, Greece, Italy, Pakistan, Ukraine, and the United Kingdom, as well as the United States. Volodymyr Zelensky accuses Russia of war crimes in Ukraine's Kherson. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky has accused Russian forces of committing war crimes and killing civilians in Kherson, which was recaptured by Ukraine last week. It was not instantly possible to verify Zelensky's allegations. Russia denies its soldiers deliberately aimed civilians. Mass graves have been found in some places across Ukraine since the beginning of the Russian invasion, including the bodies of civilians showing evidence of torture in northeastern Kharkiv region in Bucha near the capital Kyiv. Ukraine has accused Russian forces of committing the crimes. A United Nations commission in October said war crimes had been committed in Ukraine and that Russian forces were responsible for the vast majority of human rights violations in the early weeks of the war. Ukrainians in Kherson stated a deep sense of relief following the withdrawal of Russian forces on Friday after months of occupation. The region being one of four that Russian President Vladimir Putin claimed to have annexed in September, a move called unlawful by Kyiv and denounced by Western countries. The Russians withdrew on Friday, with residents expressing relief that the soldiers had gone. Residents accused the Russians of laying mines and looting, even stealing animals from a zoo before they retreated. In Africa, authorities in Burkina launched inquiry into shell fire. On Saturday, the authorities in Burkina Faso launched an inquiry into the shell fire that reportedly caused dozens of deaths in the region of Djibo. The army is accused of shell firing a number of villages situated around 10 kilometers from the army base last Wednesday, according to the United Nations High Commission on Human Rights. Speaking on Saturday, the government spokesman announced an inquiry whilst blaming jihadist extremists active in the region. The degradation of the security situation in the country has provoked two coups this year, the last one at the end of September. Since 2015, Burkina Faso has been frequently plagued by progressively frequent jihadist attacks that have killed thousands and forced some 2 million people to flee their homes. Now, former President Kenyatta in Kinshasa for talks with Tshisekedi on DRC insecurity. Former President Uhuru Kenyatta is in Kinshasa for talks with Felix Tshisekedi on the rising security situation in east of the Democratic Republic of Congo, DRC. A statement by the East African Community, EAC, indicated that Kenyatta will be holding two-day high-level consultations with Tshisekedi from Sunday. According to the statement, the peace process has been re-energized to incorporate local DRC community leaders and stakeholders to bring a comprehensive solution to the protracted security situation. The meeting came just a week after the summit of EAC heads of state held a high-level consultative meeting on the peace process in eastern DRC on the sidelines of the COP27 meeting with a view of strengthening the political track. In the meeting, all the 7 EAC member states promised to fully participate and further support the peace process. Kenyatta and Burundi's President Ndayishimiye had also engaged on the peace process in eastern DRC earlier in the month. Heads of state from Uganda, Kenya, Rwanda and Tanzania reiterated their commitment to contribute to the EAC Special Fund for the implementation of the peace process and urged all partner states to sustainably support the facility. Presently, the African Union and the International Conference on the Great Lakes region have contributed to the EAC Special Fund for the implementation of the peace process. The EAC is further set to hold a peace summit at the end of the year with a view to strengthening the complementarity role of the EAC-led peace process and the Luanda process, among other issues. The next session of the peace dialogue on the security situation in eastern DRC is scheduled to commence on 21st November 2022 in Nairobi, Kenya. And finally, on global news, Tunisia first floating solar power plant in MENA region starts operation. In Tunisia, the first floating solar station on a lake next to a Tunis industrial park has started to operate. The expectation is that the 2,000 kilowatt project from a French renewables company, CAIR, can be a prototype for bigger projects nationwide. Using floating solar panels aids to preserve water resources whilst making the panels more energy efficient. In 2015, Tunisia set ambitious aims for renewables, but last year, green sources accounted for only 2.8% of the country's energy mix, and the rest came from natural gas. Tunisia's neighbor Morocco is leading in the region. The country currently produces around a fifth of its electricity from clean sources. There are more stories. Let's go on a short break, and when we come back, it will be Zoom on Nigeria. You're welcome back. It's Zoom on Nigeria. We begin with over 10 million Nigerians have diabetes, kills more than COVID-19 cancer. As Nigerians join the rest of the world today to observe World Diabetes Day, WDD, the Endocrinology and Metabolism Society of Nigeria, EMSN, has cautioned that more than 10 million Nigerians are living with the disease, and the numbers are anticipated to double by 2030 if nothing is done urgently. Million to manage the condition, adding that diabetes is a major cause of blindness, kidney failure, heart attacks, stroke, and lower limb amputation, and treat disorders of endocrine system. Endocrinologists treat diabetes, a disease of the pancreas, and diseases that affect all the endocrine systems such as the thyroid, pituitary gland, and adrenal glands. WDD gives an opportunity to raise awareness about diabetes as a world public health issue, and what access to diabetes education buttresses the larger multi-year theme of access to care. 9 in 10 of diabetics have the type 2 variant, a lifestyle disease linked to obesity and unhealthy living. The type 1 variant is unpreventable autoimmune disease that develops in childhood. President of EMSN and consultant endocrinologist stroke physician at Lagos University Teaching Hospital Luth, Idi Araba, Professor Olufemi, said according to reports that the burden of diabetes mellitus in Nigeria is increasing, adding that diabetes remains the commonest cause of lower limb amputation and chronic kidney disease. There are only 150 practicing endocrinologists in Nigeria, which is about 1 to 1 million ratio, he said. Commenting on the cost of living with diabetes, Fazan Made said, and I quote, "Diabetes is a very costly condition. In Nigeria, a typical patient will spend 20,000 naira to 30,000 naira to properly control it. This is the minimum and covers medications, blood tests, and clinic attendance. When complications like kidney disease come into the picture, some patients have a monthly expenditure of 100,000 to 150,000. On factors fueling an increase in the number of diabetic cases, Fasamade said Western lifestyle, smoking, and drinking are risk factors." On 2023 general election, again, Atiku, Tinubu, Obi bicker over social media news, hate speech. The campaign teams of the presidential candidates of the 3 leading political parties, All Progressives Congress, Asiwaju Bola Ahmed Tinubu, People's Democratic Party PDP, Alhaji Atiku Abubakar, and Labour Party Mr. Peter Obi, were yesterday locked in bickering over fake news and hate speech. Tinubu's campaign fired the first barrage as its director media and publicity, Mr. Bayo Ononuga, in a statement accused Atiku and Obi of sponsoring fake news against Tinubu in the hope of getting the former Lagos State governor disqualified, which he said will not help the presidential quest of the duo. Responding in kind, the Atiku/Alcoa presidential campaign organization asked Tinubu to come clean about his complicity in the alleged illicit drug-related forfeiture of $460,000 to authorities in the United States, instead of trying to divert attention. In like manner, the Obi Dirty campaign of the LP asked its APC counterpart to look within its ranks for those responsible for the alleged forgery of the letter-headed paper of the Independent National Electoral Commission, INEC, to issue a fake statement saying it was depressing that a party whose candidate had a record of falsification of documents could have the effrontery to accuse innocent people of doing the same. Tinubu, Atiku, and Obi bickered as the Catholic Bishops of Conference of Nigeria, CBCN, urged political parties and their candidates to emphasize on issues in their campaigns ahead of the 2023 general election. Also, the Arewa Consultative Forum, ACF, warned politicians against hate speech, saying it posed serious danger to the unity and stability of a democratic society, protection of human rights, and the rule of law. And lastly, on business news, 2 trillion naira at stake as REP seeks to investigate 63 agencies over unauthorized budgets. The complaints by President Muhammadu Buhari that agencies of the federal government have robbed the government with undue expenditure over unauthorized budget has started to take investigative dimension. This is as the National Assembly has begun what will seem as its oversight function, probing into agencies found wanting of running unauthorized budget amounting to 2 trillion naira. Moves by the House of Representatives have found no less than 63 agencies of the federal government summoned to answer questions of running unauthorized budgets, sum up to about 2 trillion naira. The lawmakers seem to be angered by acts of insolence of some agencies, particularly some government-owned enterprises and non-treasury funded agencies, sidelining legislative process of seeking approval before running what they have seen as illegal approvals of budgets and extra constitutional expenditure. According to the lawmakers, Mr. President never presented the supposed budget running up to 2 trillion naira before the National Assembly. Consequently, a House of Representatives Committee on Public Accounts summoned the 63 agencies of the federal government, holding that there was no statutory budgetary approval involving the sum by the National Assembly. The chairman of the committee, Olowole Oke, in view of the summons, issued a written letter to the Budget Office of the Federation requesting for the evidence of the budget approvals by the National Assembly. The letter seeking evidence, dated November 8, 2022, was received at the Budget Office on November 10, 2022, having the House Committee stating that the summons were sequel to the remark by President Muhammadu Buhari during his 2023 budget presentation to the National Assembly on October 7th that some agencies were operating unauthorized budgets. A recap of major stories said Iran rockets hit Kurdish party headquarters close to Iraq's Erbil, kill 1. COP27 is energy security compatible with decarbonization. Hong Kong protest song replaces China anthem at rugby event. Joe Biden, Xi Jinping to meet in person amid strained ties. U.S. announces new sanctions on Russia military networks. Remember, you can never know too much when it comes to your health as the world celebrates World Diabetes Day. Go sugar-free, go diabetes-free. Thanks for watching. I am Lois Turaki. Have a blessed day and a blessed weekend ahead.